What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and updates. And so as always, Bungie give us plenty of information about bugs and glitches in the game. We'll talk about some additional updates and changes for content this week. But additionally, Bungie tease us a little bit about Year 11. We get a new interview where they talk about enemy types, future updates to Prismatic, general information about episodes coming up, and there are a few other things to cover in the video today. So as always guys, I hope you find this one useful, and if you do, a rating below very much helps us out on the channel. But without further delay, let's get into it. Firstly, let's start out with the updates from Bungie. A couple of minor things here, but players were discussing the timer at the end of the Ghosts of the Deep dungeon, where of course there are collectibles and things that players can pick up after the boss kill. And the D2 team said that they're aware and they're looking to address the timer. They don't currently have a timeline, but they want to make sure that folks have appropriate time for collectibles and "we did it" style screenshots at the end of the activity. So that's a minor thing coming down the road. And in terms of giving feedback and updates regarding bugs in the game, somebody said it's amazing to see the team respond to a genuine problem and give us a real timeline instead of just "we're aware of the issue." And D2 team said we won't always be able to. Sometimes the truth of the matter is that we're aware of an issue and working towards identification of the underlying problem, which of course seems fair. Otherwise, players have pointed out that we have very dark lighting for the character screen at the moment, and Bungie said it looks like we've got a change plan to address this. Don't have specifics on a timeline yet, but it is on the radar. So a couple of minor things there. Onto a couple more updates right here though. Cool Guy pointed out that even after Bungie's patch this week, there are still plenty of players who are invisible, whether it's in PvP or PvE. And the D2 team said, "We're still looking into this. We issued a fix this morning that looks to have resolved issues in the tower, but we're still seeing reports from other activities, including PvP, raids and dungeons." So it is an ongoing problem. Of course, in PvE, it tends to be more annoying than anything on the most part, but in PvP, it's certainly more frustrating. So hopefully it's something Bungie get a handle on soon, as of course it has the potential to cause some fairly significant issues. Give us your experiences with that down below. Otherwise though, the D2 team also said, "We've noticed reports and observed data that suggests XP earn rates are slower than expected. We're investigating further, but in the meantime, we've enabled a change with the update this week that increases the total weekly rest bonus by 150k XP over its 250k XP base. So I believe that means the rest bonus is now 400k, which should help us earn a little bit more on a weekly basis." But Bungie add that this is a temporary increase that'll be available each week until the issue is resolved. And so hopefully we will get more information about that one soon as well. But a final mention for this week's reset, for anyone who's been looking for the NES 003 quest, it is indeed available this week. And firstly, we have to speak to Failsafe, where we can pick up the scanner on the upgrade tab. I don't have any footage actually showing it, but it's in the research and development section. Then following that, we can boot up the breach executable activity, where the scanner will lead us to the specimen. Mine was actually immediately next to the spawn, but apparently they can be in different locations. Then upon returning to Failsafe, we actually get the NES 003 quest, where we have to kill a bunch of Vex. And it turns out Bunker E15 on Europa is the fastest way to get this done. It will require repeated runs, probably 3 or 4 runs, in order to get all of the hobgoblins, harpies, then some of the higher tier units that it suggests. But once again, Bunker E15 is a place where we can essentially farm until this quest is completed. Kind of typical seasonal quest objective right there, but nonetheless, if you wanted to get that upgrade done, it is finally available this week. And lastly for today, we actually get a new interview between Bungie and Games Radar that gives us a few tips about various elements of Final Shape, Year 11, Prismatic updates and episodes. And these were summarized by Zelwa on Reddit, so credit to them for that. But talking about the Dread, Bungie said that the Dread are here to stay for the long run. A lot of what the Dread is now has had pieces that have been in prototype and development from years and years ago. But the difference now was a few crystallizing factors. One was the end of the saga, and finally having the right place for what we've fictionally thought of as the Witness's personal army. But the other thing was trying to figure out the right way to do it, because making new faction combatants is extremely time consuming, and there's times where we've done it before and we're like, well, that was a ton of work, and was it really the right thing to do at that time? But in the case of the Dread, Ben Womack from Bungie confirmed they're definitely here to stay, because we don't want to make a new unit and then have you never see it again. So it will be interesting to see how they're placed in the future. But regarding Prismatic, apparently Bungie have future plans for it, and Ben Womack doesn't commit to specifics because Bungie is still weighing up a bunch of ideas, but he does confirm the team is looking at a lot of options for how to build on Prismatic going forward, and he added that we've discovered we could do more than we originally thought with it. It's certainly my personal hope that at the very least, on top of updates, that we get additional fragments and things like that added over the course of the episodic cadence. And then they talk about episodes, which of course are a hot topic of conversation at the moment, Bungie described them as fatter seasons, and internally they say they're viewed as not 3 big content drops, but as 9 small ones. And apparently the drops will vary in size, with each episode's first act apparently rivaling the volume of a seasonal drop, and then acts 2 and 3 adding rewards, activities, meta-defining artifact mods, and more. And the key focus for the episodes is to make more changes more frequently and to help D2 feel more alive, which is something that players have requested for years. And they also add that ideas from the Coil activity, as well as Onslaught from Into the Light, will be used in the future. Overall, it's interesting that Bungie say the first act rivals the volume of a seasonal drop. It's kind of hard to put it into perspective really, as in Act 1 of Echoes, it doesn't necessarily feel quite as significant as a seasonal drop like Season of the Wish for example, but I guess most of the components are there. Not sure if I'd say it rivals a seasonal drop just yet, but of course, all of the 3 acts put together probably will be a fair chunk bigger than a normal season. On the subject of Echoes though, Bungie mentioned that the exotic mission which will drop in Act 3 is one of the biggest that they've created, and they add that it takes place on Nessus and greatly expands on the world. So interesting that it's going to be a very significant piece of content apparently. We've had a couple of leaks about the specific exotic, which I won't spoil right here, but I'll link a video down below if you do want to check out more information about it. They talk briefly about upcoming episodes though, and firstly, Revenant, and the devs say that episode 2 is going to be all about fulfilling the Elixni prophecy of the Kell of Kells and putting an end to the Scorn menace Fikrul once and for all. And they say we've been dealing with Fikrul since Forsaken, following the thread of Eramis and other characters like Mithrax for a while, and we think about the final shape and there's just no way to finish those threads and open new doors of what we could do with these factions, so Revenant is all about following that Elixni thread, in a way that we can have this satisfying conclusion for a bunch of the arcs that we've been telling with those characters, but also to set up the future of the Fallen and the future of Elixni in this specific era. So I look forward to seeing that, but also they speak about Heresy, and they say there'll be an ancient power stirring in the halls of the Hive warship, and they're referring to the Dreadnought right here, which will shed its skin as it's brought back in Heresy with some big changes while still retaining the iconic places that players will look for. The events of the episode are going to send shockwaves through the Hive Pantheon, and the devs say you've seen us doing things with Savathûn and Xivu Arath for a while, but the Hive Pantheon has been in this strange place where one of its gods is now taking light, and they want to explore what that means for the future of the Hive. And mostly with that episode in particular, I'm very curious to see to what extent the Dreadnought will actually factor into it. I'm hoping that we do get an explorable space there, especially with the nostalgia around the Dreadnought destination, but I guess we'll simply have to wait and see. They do finish though by saying we have big plans for Year 11, and a bunch of content they've been working on for a long time, with Year 10 serving as a catalyst for what happens next in Destiny 2. And they add that with what's coming next, Bungie doesn't want to develop one big storyline, but wants to develop the game world as a whole. And Dev said a lot of what we're thinking about with Year 11 is how we really start getting into the next journey after these episodes. So we're going to be leaning on that and thinking as well, because we've been doing this linear thing for a while now, and we want to get back to expanding our worlds and world building, expanding the universe of Destiny in general. But it pauses to finally say, I think that's as much as I should probably say about it for now. So some interesting conversations right there, some very typical Bungie answers as well, but that level of vagueness is pretty much to be expected when it comes to Bungie interviews. Nonetheless, it's neat to get a bit of a tease for the Act 3 exotic mission, some of the upcoming episode content, and how Bungie are very broadly looking at Year 11 of the game. They almost speak about episodes as a separate thing to Frontiers and what we're going to see in Year 11, so I'm not sure if that potentially indicates that the episodes themselves are only what we're going to experience in the next year, and then potentially when Frontiers drops, there'll be a whole different format for content. Not entirely sure just yet, but let us know your thoughts below, and for today, that is what we have to speak about. So if you've enjoyed the video, a rating really does help us out down below. Also be sure to get subscribed to the channel so that I can keep you posted with more Destiny content. And otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.